Hey there, listener. Welcome to the Deep Share Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Rouse, and for the last couple of decades, I've slowly been opening my eyes to a very different world than the one I grew up hearing about. And the more conversations I have with interesting people, the more mystifying this world becomes. So without further ado, let's get deep.
We've got science to celebrate! Demons bliss out! After what, baby? Come on!
There is rebellion in the wind. It will crush.
Everything I've said is true. It's real.
Dinosaur fossils? God put those here to test our faith.
A damn lie. I saw them with my own eye.
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
We did illusions, man! None of it is true!
I'm not insane!
This is mass madness, you maniacs! In God's name, you people are the real thing! We are the illusion!
I'm here with Casey Watson, aka Golden Gate Starfort Command, which is awesome. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good. Nice to have you here with me.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you and I have
stoked
been
to be here.
you and I have been chatting for a while about all kinds of crazy stuff offline or online. And yeah, I couldn't wait to get you on to talk about some of your videos and some of the stuff that you've been researching and everything. But before we get into that, please give my audience a little bit of background. How did you get into the crazy world of conspiracies and all the stuff that you look into?
Well, I think punk rock like opened the door for me, or being, rebellious or whatever opened the door to punk rock. I still haven't figured out what came first, but like part of the attraction to like punk rock and hardcore to me was the anti-establishment, fuck them, fuck the government, let's do it ourselves type of shit. We don't need all these corporations to do it. We can put out records ourselves, that whole trip. And, I've pretty much, I've been anti-government from the beginning, and I've been looking into, the alternate history, and like, probably set it off with JFK, when I was in high school or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a big X-Files fan, like I watched it when it was coming out,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, that had a big influence on me. And like in the hardcore scene I was in, like we weren't like political per se. It was more like personal politics, like,
Mm-hmm.
Take care of each other, don't fuck people over, et cetera, et cetera. And I just kept learning about all these different conspiracies, and, landed in Tartaria one day.
Yeah.
Fucking here I am, man.
Stuck in the mud and can't get out.
Seriously, dude. I seriously am. I mean, I would have never like guessed that I'd be going on podcasts talking about this shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've felt compelled to do it. It's a trip. So yeah, life takes crazy turns sometimes,
Yeah, man. And I can definitely vouch for that message, that personal politic message that you were talking about in all the heavier, more countercultural music. I'm a death metal head. I love punk and hardcore for a long time. So
yeah.
I totally can relate to that. And I tell a similar story that's kind of where my roots in, distrust in establishment definitely come from. And especially the idea that, it was either that kind of music or it was cookie cutter, recycled garbage, even back then. So it was a pretty obvious choice, I'm sure, for you as it was for me,
Yeah, I mean, fucking, like I said, I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg, but
yeah,
I've been still like I'm as hardcore can get,
hell yeah.
And I try and live outside of the system as much as I possibly can.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's the way that we're all kind of either heading because we want to, or because it's kind of becoming the only way to remain sovereign, it seems.
Yeah.
one question I've been asking people and I've been asking myself, and I can't figure it out. I'm not smart enough, but everybody's digging through our legal system and like the origins of our country. And the more and more we uncover, the more it seems like, oh shit, the entire legal system's almost set up to screw us on purpose. Like even from the very beginning, with the government possibly being like a British like corporation or something. So with those ideas in mind, it's like, how the hell are we going to be free? What piece of land are we going to be able to reside on and be free and live outside the system eventually,
Yeah, I mean, fucking, that's a great question. I mean, the system's been rigged from the start, and it's been rigged for us to lose and them to win, like the workers, even if, we take history as it is, the workers of the gold mines, the workers of the railroads, like the people who have built this country in particular have been fucked, you know what I mean? And that's just, can we cuss on this one? Can we
Yeah, that's
cuss on
fine,
this?
man.
All
Yeah,
right,
no
sorry.
problem.
I have a hard time not doing it.
Dude, I do too. And I've like curtailed myself quite a bit because of this show.
For sure. Yeah, I just gotta remember I'm being recorded here.
That's all right,
But
man. No
yeah,
worries.
fucking, like I said, it's been rigged from the start. And
Yeah.
the more people that realize that, the better, and I think a lot more people are coming to that realization, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it feels
And
that
that's
way.
a good thing.
Yeah,
Definitely. I hope so. I hope so.
I know. Are we being biased? Are we just seeing it through our, conspiracy tinted glasses? I don't know. It does feel that way that people that I never would have expected to be like questioning anything, digging into things like Tartaria and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
it's probably a
big
good
time.
sign. So
I think so.
with that being said, let's dive into all the stuff that you and I have been discussing. Where would you like to start? Honestly, I'll leave that up to you.
I mean, man, there are so many places to start.
Yeah,
I do.
yeah.
I do really want to get into the City Beautiful movement,
Let's
because
start with that. Why don't
I
we
think
start with that?
that's pretty important. And I can get a little screen share.
Yeah, by all means. I think it's automatic
Let's
whenever
see.
you do it. There we go.
All right, let's get out of that fucking screen, or we could just go here. So the City Beautiful movement like started in the late 1800s and mid to late 1800s into the 1900s, and it was like a urban planning architecture movement, and it sounds pretty what's the word, non threatening, I guess, when you just on the top of it,
Mm-hmm.
But so another interesting thing, this woman, Jane Jacobs, she referred to the movement as an architectural design cult. That's just a trip. But basically, these guys, they studied in the Beaux Arts School in France, and the Beaux Arts School, it was called the École des Beaux-Arts. It was in Paris, 1830s into the 19th century. I think it's funny that it's called Beaux Arts because it fucking rhymes with faux arts so well. Their style was like the Gothic, neoclassical, 19th century shit.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our American architects came from there. And this guy, Daniel Burnham, we'll get to in a little bit. So they got involved in the expos, and like the first large scale expo they were involved in. And I haven't looked too deep into previous, but I feel like they were involved in small scales in like the New Orleans and Louisville fairs in the 1880s.
Mm-hmm.
But they got in 1893 Chicago, and that's like the one, that everyone talks about.
Right.
Yeah, and that was Daniel Burnham's fair. And they went on to do the 1904 Louisiana Purchase one in St. Louis, which is considered like another biggie.
Mm-hmm.
They were involved in the McMillan Plan of DC. And then just as far as city planning, and that's what I call it, like, so just to, I think this is a cover story for a lot of the architecture and shit.
Yeah.
And this is how they did it. And they did it through the expos, and they did it through city planning and like claiming buildings. And further down the line, as I showed, they historicalize these buildings too. And that, when they do that, makes it really hard to question the history, because there's a fucking historical plaque on it, you know?
Right. They put a whole
So
story to it.
totally, you know
And
what I
they
mean?
teach
And
us
that,
those stories from when we're 5-6 years old.
exactly. And so it's really hard to, they did a really fucking good job. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like we can just go through, you know, Chicago, Coral Gables, Denver, Louisville, Harrisburg, Memphis, Palos Verdes.
Huh.
They're all city beautiful cities. And it was huge in Australia.
Oh, so
I
this,
haven't,
okay. This is
yeah.
beyond just the States. Okay.
Yeah, well, I haven't looked into it outside of the States, because like
Okay.
this is enough, you know,
Right.
for me.
Right.
But it came out of France, and there's a bunch of connections, and to like that 1887 Paris Expo, the Eiffel Tower one, whatever year that was.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's where Daniel Burnham and Michael DeYoung, who's a famous San Francisco guy, that's where they all like learned their trade, you know, and they brought it, you know, they fine tuned it up until Chicago, and did all those, they did all those fairs and other things. And I have, let me get out of the screen share, and then I could just show you guys my collection of books that are about City Beautiful. Books and postcards, actually.
Wow.
And this is a trip. So here's just two postcards from Santa Cruz, but they both say from Santa Cruz, the City Beautiful.
The City Beautiful.
We got Coral Gables, the City Beautiful postcard. Put that book aside. City Beautiful in a Small Town, the early history of the Village Improvement Society in Oberlin, wherever the fuck that is.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it does sound familiar. Floor to Sand to the City Beautiful. This is Orlando. Here's another Orlando. Los Angeles, the City Beautiful.
Wow.
Milwaukee, the City Beautiful. There's a bunch, I got a bunch of different Chicago stuff. Chicago, the City Beautiful. I got this book, The City Beautiful. I even got fucking, I'll show those in a second. Another Milwaukee, Bathurst.
Wow. It's starting to feel like it's basically every city.
Yeah. Joaquin Miller wrote The Building of the City Beautiful. Yeah. Nouveau, the City Beautiful. Got Denver, the City Beautiful.
Wow.
And the hits keep coming.
Yeah, if I picked up a book like that and saw a few of them at a bookstore, I'd just think it was some like series of books. I wouldn't even think twice. Yeah. Oh, look at that. And look at that font.
Yeah, dude.
Doesn't that look just a little too Disney?
Yeah, it's full. I think it is the Disney font.
Jeez.
I got Detroit, another Detroit. So like clearly it meant something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, and it seemed like one of that, I think it was the Florida postcard that was in color, so it looked like it was a little bit more modern. Yeah. That got me thinking that, okay, so they're still, oh, no shit. Wow.
Chicago City Beautiful cup, glass.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's almost like I want to like take a picture of every one of those covers and everything and like send it to someone that can like just see the symbolism like coming right out of off the page, you know what I mean? Because I can pick up on a few things right off the bat. I'm like, I wonder what else they were putting into those images with the City Beautiful. That's right. So interesting. I've never heard of this movement.
Yeah, neither had I until I came across it like I would think I was looking into Daniel Burnham.
Yeah, so let's get
Um,
into him because I've heard his
yeah,
name before, but
yeah.
this is a
Well, I
deep
can
well.
let me before we get into him, let
Mhm.
me so City Beautiful is like how they did it on the national level, at least in America, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure they had different
So,
names at other places.
right. In California, we have there is the Native Sons of the Golden West, and fraternal organization founded in 1877, founded by an odd fellow. Basically, their whole mission is historical preservation, and these are all the places that I guess they've bought and rehabilitated, like
Mhm.
Sutter's Fort, the Maritime Historical Museum. But then the main thing that they do is they do historical markers, and they've done over 1,200 historical markers
Huh.
throughout California. And so that's how they historicalized it. They literally stamped them with historical markers. And like, it's really hard to question that. You know what I mean?
Right.
You
You know
look
what?
at notable,
I
just a real
just
quick,
yeah. Go ahead.
Nixon was a member of the Native
Really,
Sons at one point. So,
Millhouse.
yeah,
Jeez.
all these guys, I haven't looked into all of them, but I'm sure, they're
Well,
affiliated with fucking.
I already saw one other name that was sounded a little nefarious. What was it? Lloyd G. Davies. That sounds really familiar,
Mm,
but who knows? So many friggin' names have entered my brain within the span of a
uh,
year.
he was in the LA Department of Water and Power. So,
I mean, it's automatically just, I mean, I could be grasping at straws here, but it is a little curious to see like just the name of that, Native Sons of the Golden West. It just sure sounds like something in the Golden Dawn would do, you know?
totally. Yeah, totally. And
They
who
love
knows how
playing
many,
with the words.
yeah, I mean, who knows how many of these guys were in the Golden Dawn or the OTO or,
Right, right.
Moose Lodge members, the Free Brick members. It's a trip, man. It ties it all in. I'm sure every state has these same kind of groups of the Native
Mhm.
Sons who put historical markers on the shit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And just own it. They just go
Yeah,
around and literally, I mean, I
yeah.
know
A lot of it they literally do own.
perhaps to some of my audience, like just coming right out and saying that these people were running around putting nonsense, whatever they wanted to sway us on these plaques probably sounds a little crazy, but I think as we further this experiment, this idea of redacted history and like fake history is becoming more and more apparent.
For sure. And it's not an easy thing to jump into. And
No.
I've been trying my best to learn how to ease people into the conversation, especially as I do these podcasts, because I just don't want to come out like too bad out of hell, right off the gate anyways,
Yeah, I
but
totally
like
get it.
I like, look up these things yourselves and, just see what you think, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? I think it's all tied together big time. And this proves that there was at least an American national cover up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which has always
To
been
me,
like it screwed me up, and my wife and I both were so confused about Tartaria because the maps point to it being something in Russia, basically, as if okay, so maybe the czars and that whole gang just completely eradicated them for whatever reason. But then it just seems to get so much deeper, and I'm probably jumping ahead. We can pull back, but
no, I mean
just to
that's
throw
cool.
this out there, just the idea that Tartaria is not just the idea of some nation over in Eastern Europe, but that along the same mythical stories of Atlantis, where it was like this globally reaching nation or something like that? What have you gained? What have you gathered from the mixture of different theories surrounding that?
Yeah, I mean, I believe all these buildings were built by the same people, all these ones in question, I
The
think
architecture is unmistakable.
yeah, I mean, and you can look like you can play a game and just, fucking guess what city, like it's pick 1890 and just click any city, and try and have someone guess. Like they
Right.
won't, they
Yeah,
won't.
find the cathodes, find
Yeah,
them.
they won't. And like, yeah, it's just there's something to it. And, I think based on like how they like to invert everything, like you just said, and
Mhm.
I think history is completely inverted, I guess. I think, history, everything that they say came out of like, Rome, Jerusalem, Egypt, all that bullshit came out of like Tartary,
Mhm.
and North and South America.
Oh
And
yeah, definitely.
I think, like, what we know as Russia now and North America was probably a lot more connected before like the big flood.
Mhm.
Like, they talk about a land bridge, but I think it was like they were just one continent, probably.
Oh,
You know what I
cool. Well, at
mean?
one point, yeah,
And
definitely.
it was probably all like Tartaria, you know what I mean? Um,
Okay, I see. I see.
um,
Well, so that's weird too, because isn't there some speculation that so we're talking the difference between, I mean, if all of this used to be Tartaria, we're talking, you know, upwards of, 10,000, 20,000 years in the past, possibly. Whereas the Tartaria stories that are at least becoming more popular or more accessible are more about this like pre-Russian geographical area or whatever.
mm,
So maybe I'm asking the wrong question. I'm not sure, but like, do you see what I'm saying here? How there's the Russia idea, but then there's the,
yeah.
oh no, Tartaria was everything before any of us were here. Like Sumer was borrowing notes from Tartaria, like that. It's two very different ideas, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? And I know I've heard a couple people like me confused about that. I wasn't sure if you had a better way to kind of
Well, the
frame
maps,
it for the audience.
yeah, I mean, there's maps that show like Tartary and Tartaria in the country in Russia, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's straight off right there, that's the connection. And I
Right.
was actually, I might have these maps, like the great, so like these maps, let's see. Shit, I don't know if I saved them, but they show, they show China on the opposite side of the Great Wall.
Really?
And yeah, and that that makes sense why they would have built it.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Let me see if
Oh, definitely. I've
I
heard
can
that
find it.
too.
Let me see. Okay, here we go. This one.
There we go. This is
Yeah,
one of the ones
see.
I'm familiar with. Yep.
So
There's the
here's the Great
wall.
Wall, China, and then
Hmm.
all this Tartaria and all this. Sometimes, I mean, there's a little Mongol, like there's other common cities and countries.
Oh yeah, I've definitely seen like tar and tartar in many different places in these old maps.
Totally. Here's
So,
another one with China on this side of the Great Wall.
yep.
And then this is,
And
oh,
Tartaricus, Oceanus Tartaricus.
yeah.
Wow.
So the Pacific Ocean, a lot of times, is called like the Tartarian Sea or
Mm.
like Oceanus. There's different, there's like,
For people listening, Just go to YouTube. some of these
Yeah,
some of these images are pretty impressive, and
yeah,
these are
this is
so
cool.
old. So I
Yeah,
guess
there's an English one I have too. I should show.
I think I'm starting to get a better grasp here. It's almost like over time, this very, 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 very ancient, all encompassing civilization just has little bits, remnants of it left over time. And maybe the area of Russia was like its last remaining empire or something.
Yes, pretty
Okay.
much. Pretty
So
much.
then that's where we get into the possibility of like the new chronology from Anatoly Fomenko, where like
Exactly.
there's been tons of added years in our history, and
Yeah.
that
Like
like
what he
Sumer
figured.
Egypt was not that long ago, and that would
Totally. That
imply that fucking all of carbon dating and science is at least being manipulated, if not flat out just a lie. Whew.
yeah, man. That his whole stuff is really, really fascinating on so many levels, you know, like just the fact
Fomenko's.
that, yeah, Flamenco's, yeah.
Mhm.
And oh man, there's so much to learn from it. It's just a trip that, I, I could be saying this wrong, but I feel like he was hired to like figure out the actual chronological history, and he ended
Mhm.
up covering up he ended up finding out the real timeline, and that the 1,000 years thing, so
Mhm.
it's just really fascinating, and I know you probably felt this too, but growing up, like, we were only taught that Russians were like evil commies, you know what I mean? So we never learned shit about anything from Russia. So it's so fascinating to me now, like learning all this info from all these scientists and, or all these philosophers, and even, like Phil Druzin and Mudflood University out of Russia. Like, there is a lot of knowledge out of there, and it's been hidden from us in America forever. And so it's
Yeah.
super fascinating for me just to learn about that period.
Yeah, man.
And
The mud flood aspect is fascinating. I just
yeah,
barely
it's crazy.
grazing the surface. I'm sure you've
Totally.
actually learned a lot more than I have about this. I believe it was you recently showing pictures of what happened during was it Mount St. Helens
Oh yeah.
eruption?
Yeah,
Yeah, talk about
totally.
that a little bit because that's impressive. That's the
Totally.
connection to the theory about the mud floods is pretty
Yeah. I mean, I should actually just show that
yeah,
too.
by all means.
Um, yeah, I mean, so when Mount St. Helens went off, it created a massive mud flood. And let's see, I have all those pictures, right? Yeah, perfect. There's some funny ass statues I seen, dude.
Oh my God, I thought that was a drawing.
No, it's a sculpture. This is from the 1904 World's Fair, and
Wow.
clearly New World.
Very.
Yeah, but it's funny because this dude actually looks exactly like a friend of mine. And fucking, I think he might have Bruce Willis 12 monkeyed us, dude.
Oh, maybe.
I don't know.
That's
So
a great
anyways,
movie.
yeah, totally. So this is what happened after Mount St. Helens went off. Is it just totally mud flooded? I think this is the 23 miles from Mount St. Helens. It
Wow.
was it was burying houses. And this is basically the mud flood theory. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
so Mount St. Helens, there was an earthquake. It was like a 5.1 earthquake. Um, and that went through the mountain and like split it on the side, and steam started blasting out. And so like they started evacuating people. It was basically they had one day, and it went off a day later. And this was part of the destruction. And what happened, liquefaction turns fucking dirt into mud, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it floods, literally.
Yeah. So for the listeners, we're showing many houses and buildings that are just forever changed. First floors have turned
Yeah.
into basements, basically.
You can see here how the
Oh wow.
how it creeped in. These guys got
Jeez.
lucky, but these guys didn't do so well.
And this mud moves so fast and so furiously, it just changes the entire landscape and just
Totally.
covers everything. And then once it stops, what's the word? I think once it putrefies, or once it petrifies, or whatever it does, it just solidifies. Yeah, bam.
Yeah.
And then nothing can be moved. It's just solid ground again. People have
Yeah.
reported like the ground bubbling underneath their feet and stuff like that. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
totally. Yeah, man.
So Mount
There's
St.
lots of
Helens
videos of it. So like, just to like explain, like,
yes.
so if this was like a mud flooded building, this explains why there's windows halfway
Right.
on the sidewalks. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
and they either dug them out a little bit, or they just fucking built a door where a window was. You know what I mean?
Right. The
Yeah.
examples from the big cities from back in that time period, it's so uncanny. It makes so much sense that, okay, clearly these buildings had a catastrophe, and it's pretty wild.
So this is a little chart of the blast, just to explain it more. So this brown is the mud flow deposits. And as you can see, this is 5 miles. So like 5, 10, 50, 20, 25, you know what I mean? All here. Yeah, mud flow. It's called a lahar. A lahar is a volcanic mud flow.
Wow.
And so that's what they got. It's crazy.
And so in the grand scheme of things, Mount St. Helens is not that big. I mean, it destroyed the area. No. It was a phenomenon, and everyone was affected. Everybody heard about it. Yeah, look at these pictures. It's crazy. So this little mountain that was an active volcano, but imagine an impact so massive. Or I mean, what is the theory about? Have we explained for the audience a little bit about like where we can go with mud flood theory? Like, is there any theories about how this mud flood started? Like, does it match up with like the geologists that talk about the impacts and stuff like that? Or go ahead. What is it?
I think a lot of us agree that there was a more recent mud flood catastrophe, and it's I personally think it was probably sometime in the 1700s or early 1800s, something like that. And I personally think a majority of it was just based off our current system and our current controllers, who are warmongers and have always been warmongers. I think there was some kind of war, and I think like they had weaponry. They had, basically direct energy weapons, that they just fucking scorched earth policy, the whole fucking civilization. And then they went country to country, wiping out the survivors and just setting up their indoctrination programs. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what I think. But also tied in a lot, I think, there's a huge aspect of mining involved in this whole story. And even just like the modern mining from the gold rush and shit completely changed the landscapes of California with hydraulic mining.
Okay, let's go into that.
Yeah, we can get, I have some photos I can definitely show that. I think even if you think about like the Sumerian myth or whatever, like what were they doing here? You know what I mean?
Right. Well,
they were fucking mining.
Yeah.
And imagine like the size of the mining operation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you have to look at patterns. You have to look at patterns with these, quote unquote, the bad guys. because they do the same things all the time, you know.
Totally.
And
Yeah, I
so
mean,
you look at South Africa, and or not just South Africa, but all over Africa where the mines are and all that horribleness that goes on. Like clearly, I mean, there's talk of there's like another pronunciation for Anunnaki in those areas of Africa where all the mining gets done.
right.
So, I mean, it's the same story. It's the same people at some point. People, nonetheless, still claiming to be gods. Like it's just,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
gross.
And so with hydraulic mining, I think it can really paint the picture of how the land can be devastated from it. And so hydraulic mining is basically high pressured hose fucking mining. Usually they'd either blast the countryside and then spray it down into sluices and then into spoil tip tailing, tailing mountains, or a lot of times just back into the streams or rivers that they were diverting.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I mean, you can just see the massiveness of it. And these are all from California.
Wow.
And sorry it's so pixelated, but so here's a old drawing of the fucking cannon.
Wow.
Had these huge rock. There's rocks back here as a counterweight. That's how fucking powerful this thing was. However many rocks that weighs.
That's insane.
Yeah,
And it
look
looks
like
so
you could,
steampunk, doesn't it?
yeah, totally. It is.
It is. That's what I
mean,
was getting at, because
yeah.
I mean, I've heard that steampunk idea built into a lot of the Tartaria stuff too. Just
Yeah, I
like
mean,
the idea of steam powered everything.
Well, it was definitely like, yeah, for freer energy for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think steam definitely ties into that. So you can see the valley too. Like this has been mined, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
like is Grand Canyon, like look at this has all been mined. Like this used to be the land up here.
Right. That's
so
unbelievable.
You can start going down the rabbit hole that was the Grand Canyon mined out.
Yeah.
Are we just
if they
told
can do jobs this size?
Yeah.
I mean, holy crap.
Yeah, man. And this is all like, this was what they did at the time.
They shaped the landscape. They like terraformed the whole country. Yeah. It's just more and more evidence pointing and suggesting that America was this like big theatrical setup.
Totally. I'm on the same boat too, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's something about America and North America and South America.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll throw Russia in too, and that whole zone. There's something to it that has been hidden for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Have you heard about Amaruka? I've asked one other person, and they did get back to me, but
it's
not as I hoped.
Familiar, but you'd have to refresh me.
Supposedly, it's I think this is like, I'm gonna butcher this, but it's something to do with the name of like this continent, America. Like it's supposedly that it was named.
Okay.
Supposedly it was named after Amerigo Vespucci. I think he was a cartographer or a traveler or something. But as it turns out, like he didn't even give himself that name until he got back to Europe after coming here and hearing the name Amerique or Amaruca. And I guess that was more in the South. But I guess it loosely translated to like land of the plumed serpent, which relates right back to Quetzalcoatl and the South American and Central American, and that whole region and all those gods that replicate one another in the stories, So
totally.
It's interesting how it might tie in.
Super interesting.
And that's a total side. Doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Tartaria, but I feel like it's along some line they do connect. Obviously, it's all tied together in one way or the other.
History has been hidden for sure. I mean, like the Carnegie Foundation like restored, and the Carnegie Foundation owned Chichen Itza, like the turn of the century, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that doesn't sound
It's
good.
on Wikipedia. Yeah, it says they
I didn't realize that.
they dug it out and restored it. And what did they restore it to how they wanted it to look, or did they restore it to how it looked? You know what I mean?
Yeah, how many symbols did they manipulate and
Another
remove
piece,
or
totally.
add?
Yep. And Carnegie is the library. Carnegie libraries is a huge thing. There's like fucking thousands of them across the world. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
if you control the media, you can control a lot of shit, and that includes books.
Yeah, some people forget that. It's like we all focus on Hollywood a lot, but I mean, Hollywood does not have a single original idea. It all comes from books.
Oh yeah,
So,
totally.
and that's how it really gets you, because then the reading forces you to imagine. So it uses your imagination. So the predictive programming is way stronger.
Yeah, I remember there was when Crow was getting into all his moon episodes. One of the things that really stuck with me was and I already believe we didn't go to the moon, but he said, what's the first thing you think of when you think of space, and it's like Star Wars, or I'm sure a lot of people say Star Trek, and like,
sure,
boom, obvious right there, fucking program, you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
We don't even think of real space when we think of space. So
just our imagination.
Yeah, that's a sign. Yeah, that's a sign to me that, like, they're hiding something. And
so yeah, we've kind of gone off on a sidetrack, but that's okay. I kind of figured we would anyway.
Totally.
That's kind of part of the spirit of the show anyway. But
no, I like keeping it organic and just seeing where things go.
Yeah.
I want to, before we get too far out there, I have some really interesting Daniel Burnham shit.
Yeah, let's get into this guy.
And this is a trip. So let me find that. I have his wiki up here, which, it's whatever, but there's enough to get you thinking, you know what I mean? So he was a Beaux Arts dude and fucking whatever. He did he was known as the dude who did the Chicago Expo in 1893. And he did a whole bunch of other shit. Did a bunch of shit in the Philippines. And like I said, he's a huge, okay, here we go. Here's the good stuff. So it talks about here how he was one of the country's most prominent advocates for the Beaux Arts movement, which was, and the revival of neoclassical architecture. And I think the reason that this movement was around, if I didn't say it well enough the first time, was that that's what style these buildings were. And so they created the faux arts movement to basically claim the architecture, you know what I mean? And now 150 years later, how are we to know? We don't know what they told the people at the time. This is Wikipedia right now, They could have told the people at the time that they found it, you know what I mean? And, switched it up, whatever, I'm just really blabbering. But some notable commissions, just Chicago, Cincinnati, Detroit. I'll go a little slower, sorry. So all these ones in Chicago, turn of the century, Cincinnati, Detroit, New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. We got SF. I actually just posted about the Merchants Exchange building, and it's still around. It's a pretty tight building. Oh, great, cool pictures. There's weird history. There's like 3 of them. But DC, and then all these other small towns. We got Iowa, Wisconsin, we got Buffalo, Columbus, blah blah blah. You guys can all see it. Like, this nuts. Guy is responsible. He is very prolific, very, very prolific. And he's known for all these planning so like they were technically planning these cities or whatever. And so I found he did plans for San Francisco in 1905, and these are the plans, and they're crazy. And so 1905, just keep that date in mind in the back of your pocket for a second as we go through these drawings. I mean, clearly none of them got approved, you know, but it's not to say it's not to say it wasn't the only proposal. I'll get to like the like real trippy meaning of this later, but like just the drawings, you know what, you know, this is his proposed plan for SF in 1905. So the city's been around for 55 years. According to all the pictures and everything, it's completely built out. Yeah. But he comes in with these plans of these epic fucking,
very Roman,
you know, yes.
Oh
so this
my
is
God, really?
This, yeah. So this would be Twin Peaks. I don't know if people are familiar with SF, where that big ass radio tower is on the hill
in San Francisco.
Yeah, in San Francisco. This is Twin Peaks, and this is the Pacific Ocean right here. So this is what pretty sick.
That looks pretty zodiacal to me.
Yeah.
With that dead line just pointing right west.
And
there's
so this is like Ocean Beach. Yeah, another obelisk down here. I don't know if this is like a lagoon or something.
God, can you imagine picturing an American city right now that's just completely Greco-Roman?
Yeah.
I mean, oh yeah, DC. But of course, that's its own sovereign nation.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy.
What was that one? Was that Washington?
No, this is all these are all San Francisco.
Oh my God, because that looks like the Washington Monument
for San Francisco. So yeah, again, this is Twin Peaks, but looking east the other way. So this is all of this here is like the city.
Wow.
And that's probably Treasure Island right there. And this is Oakland, East Bay and shit.
Wow.
So he had plans for all of this.
Yet in contemporary accepted history, this was already built out at that time.
Yeah. So like why, first of all, why? So why were they trying to propose these plans to the city? And so it's 1905.
That's when these were written.
Yeah, these were done in 1905.
Okay.
Look at this crazy fucking thing.
Jeez.
So what happened in 1906? The city was fucking leveled. So
was it?
Yeah, in the quake.
Wow.
Quake and fire of 1906.
Oh,
San Francisco was fucking leveled.
That's right.
So did he know that was going to happen? That's why he's proposing these plans in 1905. You know what I mean?
I mean, this would have completely transformed the entire. It would have literally been, well, no wonder it didn't get approved, because someone must have been like, dude, that's way too obvious. We can't do that. Not yet. Not until the 21st century, at least.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know whose plan got approved after the quake, but like what trips me out is that this proposed plan was a year before the quake, and like there was a literal blank canvas for them after 1906, you know what I mean? So like this could have been done because everything was destroyed.
Right. My God.
For some reason this didn't happen, you know, but like that doesn't mean that doesn't mean I haven't found the plan that did get approved, you know what I mean, or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I hear you.
And it just makes me think, like, because I've thought that was a planned false flag event anyways. And I just found these drawings, and it's from a year before. So it just made me start thinking like they were planning for it to happen, you know?
So who was this guy? I mean, is there any clear indication that he was like highly influenced by this art style, or is that
Yeah, I
someone
mean,
must have questioned this at some point?
it was so, I mean, the City Beautiful movement, it was they did question it, you know. The movement only went until like the early 1900s, and they kind of, I think a new power kind of came along at it, and it was actually they called it the it was like when they started doing the more block style construction, the more economic, like fit people in construction.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually a name for that. They called it the city something movement. I can't fucking remember what, but I think, you know, I mean, I think these guys died and new people came into power, and kind of, you know, that's, you know, these guys, part of the whole hustle is like they're getting paid to build a new building. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So like, A, why wouldn't they just destroy what was there and to build something new? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And B, they can make a shit ton of money if the building's already there and they just have to restore it, and they're
Right.
getting fucking millions, you know? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's talk of the palace, you know, the Palace of Fine Arts was torn down in the 60s, they say, in San Francisco. The company that was hired to rebuild it was paid like $25 million. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
of course they're gonna fucking do whatever, you
Right.
know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
No
they
one.
said that, you know, they built it exactly the same. And there's video footage of like the domes falling down and shit. But, you know, that's just all to perpetuate the lie, in my opinion. You know, part of the
Yeah.
thing, like these guys are doing this for money and power, you know. At the time, land and like they were the expos and the indoctrinations, like they were changing the world, and along with all the other people involved in the expos all over the world. Like these guys were just the guys in America, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like
There's
they were,
counterparts
you
all
know,
over the place.
totally, like, you know, I just haven't got into that because there's still so much here.
There's always
Like he's
so
known,
much.
you know, that Chicago's known as the White City, you know, and that's
Mm.
his thing. A lot of these expos, you know, were called White Cities or fucking Ivory Cities and shit. You know, there is a massive racist push, you
Sounds
know,
like it.
from these
Yeah.
guys, and a big part of the fair was indoctrination of the natives, you know, like, you know, the superiority of whites over everyone, and making all the other races look like savages and slaves and everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the expos had expositions of like Eskimo tribe or the plantation. Go visit the plantation and, you know, see what it was like. And
Right.
there'd be, you know, a lot of times there'd be black people, you know, working there as slaves or whatever. And I think a lot of times there'd be people just in blackface painted, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Or
most
like,
likely back then. Yeah.
yeah, I know for sure there was accounts in San Francisco at the Japanese garden that I think it was a 1915 fair. Hey, that like the rickshaw drivers and shit were just like white guys and, you know, Japanese face paint or whatever, you know, slanty eye, you know, with probably slanty eye and buck tooth paint,
This
face paint
goes
on, you know what I mean?
right back to that theatrical feeling, you
Mm-hmm.
know, where it's
Totally.
how much of our
Once,
experience is just made up.
totally. Well, once radio and television came along, they didn't really need the expos anymore
Right.
because they had radio and television, you know, and like the expos actually died off like in the kind of after the like 1915s. There's a few after they kind of died off until like the late 30s, like, and 39 was like New York and San Francisco had one at the same time, and they were both kind of like futuristic.
That makes
um
sense.
and the New York one had they had the first ever science fiction convention at it,
Hmm.
and there was like a huge exhibit. There's a huge exhibit called Futurama.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I could actually
Yeah.
probably look it up, but I mean, it's all programming. And
Yeah.
the powers kind of change, or the tastes kind of change.
The goal is the same.
But yeah, it's all fucking money and power,
And it's heading towards this very machine incorporated AI, whatever you want to call it, future. It's
Definitely.
friggin' Matrix, Terminator, and Blade Runner all mixed
Dude.
together in one.
Yeah. And it's not surprising at all. You know what I mean? I even at the time, like as I was getting older, and you see those movies, and it's like, man, this could really happen, And then now it's like, man, this is fucking happening, dude.
Yeah, past tense is no longer working.
Yeah, like it's
or
happened,
future
dude.
tense. Yeah, like
it's
happening. I also feel like I was just talking to somebody about it earlier, how so I guess we can see all this as predictive programming, but at the same time, like I feel like some of us, as long as it's predictive programming, maybe it's a little different, Whereas, like, I hope I don't have to give up all my favorite movies.
It's
because they're all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I used to love all. I've kind of faded off it the last couple of years, but I used to see all the movies, all the big blockbusters, all the shows.
Yeah,
and I knew it. I knew it was programming, for sure. But I could look at it as entertainment, and it's just in the last couple of years I've just been less entertained by it, and like,
yeah,
I don't think I'm very enjoyable to watch, like a fucking Marvel movie with, because I'm just constant commentary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and fucking. So
like, oh, this means
off.
that, and that means this.
Yeah, it's it's better off. But yeah, it's good to know that you are being programmed for sure, and we have been for a long time. I think we have been for hundreds of years, and they're doing it now, and they've been doing it. Yeah, this is just that Futurama exhibit. It's just kind of going through.
I'm trying to like pick up on some themes from the cartoon, because I guarantee Matt Groening would have definitely thrown back to this.
For sure.
And it does. It looks like and you think about Futurama, the cartoon, it is like a 50s cornball future. It's I don't know if you're familiar with the game Fallout. I just talked about this on the podcast, but that game is like a future post-apocalyptic sci-fi game, but it takes place from like a 50s style, and that is clearly where this was like kind of just put in our laps and dropped off into our lives. It wasn't like, unfortunately, like our idea. It was planted.
Totally. Look at this. This was the Shell Oil City of Tomorrow model, and it looks exactly like a circuit board. And like, I don't know if you got into the circuit board city shit at all.
I've seen it. I've seen a couple doctored images, but then I've seen I know what my motherboard looks like in my PC. So it's that's pretty much. Yeah. But I almost see it in a different pattern. I kind of see it as like scale invariance, almost like with or without these quote unquote controllers. They're just manipulating what's already there. You know what I mean? Totally. I do feel like nature just continuously mimics itself and repeats itself over and over again. How people always put like images of like the electrical currents in our brain up to like the light signatures of the universe. And it's like, oh, see, different levels of reality, they all reflect one another. So, I'm wondering if like that circuit board thing, it's like maybe in a way, and this is going pretty deep, but like, it's kind of like almost like nature's metaphor almost for like, it's how we are reflecting, our computers are reflecting the greater scope of our cities and vice versa. Doubt. Like maybe it was planned that way, but maybe there's a bit of natural phenomena in there with the scale invariance. I love that idea, that because it really does seem to permeate from level to level to level, how it's like a Russian doll in a way.
Yeah.
If you want to get real deep into it. Yeah, look at that. That's perfect. It's a great example. It looks like a nuclear facility.
Sure. Or a bunch of freaking apartment buildings and
Yeah, futuristic
Yeah.
apartment buildings and stuff. It looks
Yeah.
like Cyberpunk 2077, that new game.
yeah. I mean, this is, I think that, well, these ancient cities that we all live on, I think did function in this way. And like you said, they were just reusing it. Like this was just them kind of, I think, showing us a little, I think back then, this was in 36, somehow this didn't get wiped, whatever. Maybe they're less careless about showing how like these buildings and everything are connected, because that's a big theory with the Tartarian stuff, is that the cities were it was a self-governing energy, or they were, these buildings, like the tech on the top were conducting energy, and they were sharing it with each other like a circuit board, and there was power stations and chargers and batteries and all that shit. But those were the building, like those were actual buildings.
Right.
They were harnessing it through the building.
And that goes back to the whole cathedrals being cathodes with their antenna and all that, and with the old Gothic architecture, where this is so starkly different with all 90-degree angles and everything. It is interesting too.
I think they're trying to maximize. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, that's fine. We're gonna do it the whole time.
Yeah, I think as they were going, they're trying to maximize the power they can harness as they've been building out the cities. And they're, these power companies and stuff are, they're just collecting free energy and selling it. You know what I mean? Like they're, and like that's so obvious.
So obvious.
Even
it's
like
too
the water,
obvious. So it's like right about here, and you can't even, you don't even know what's really going on.
And
it's
I've been
cool
starting.
About, sorry, real quick. It's cool about this idea of, the circuit board having its function and then seeing it on a more massive scale in like a city structure that was being planned. I've kind of heard this before when it comes to the pyramids. I had a researcher and author named Freddie Silva on, and he talks a lot about temples and the energy around temples, and specifically because of the shapes, geometrical shapes that can reflect, I guess, certain frequencies or something like that. I'm not going to be able to repeat it verbatim, but along those lines, it seems like what the way he described it was that they had figured out this scale invariance idea, that like nature has a very specific way of doing things, and if we can recreate it on every scale in our lives, then we'll probably live the smoothest and the best lives we can. And so perhaps this more modern take, this, if we dare call them like this evil empire, the beginnings of this reset, maybe they figured out like what is like a less natural, more artificial, more man-made way to achieve the same thing, but at the expense of everybody and the expense of our lives and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, they've profited off it, and fucking as much as they possibly can, double, triple, fucking quadruple dipping,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
On everything, totally. Yeah, on everything from water. These water power plants are getting electricity, from the water and the water. You know what I mean? Like fucking
wow, yeah.
double dipping everywhere. And I'm starting to have this theory about how the freeways and highways are conducting energy and flow throughout the system too, like through friction and sound, even, like harnessing the sound and turning it into energy, taking the friction, turning it into energy, and just spreading it around, like all these city buildings and stuff are all like paid for, free. They use the free power, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
that would make so much sense,
they don't pay for water. but they make everyone else pay, and they're giving them free shit.
Dude, you're blowing my mind, man. The highway idea just totally blew my mind. Because they love to mimic shit and they love to tease us with shit, right?
Totally.
And how long now have we been seeing this idea of this perfect utopia where every movement is going to generate? It's like, it's a good idea. It's a great idea. And they've been prepping for it this whole time.
It's great if it's free. But it's
great
not
if it's in our hands.
Yeah, it's not when you have to. Exactly. You pay for the house, you pay for the energy, you pay for the water, you pay for the car, you pay for the tires, you pay for the gas, you pay for the oil.
Right. It's really not a change
by the same people. Yeah, you know.
It's a fake paradigm shift.
They're dipping in so many times, it's ridiculous. That's why the 1% is like so out of reach, you know. They've been doing this, as far as I'm concerned, for at least 160 years, and they've been really good at doing it.
Yeah.
And you know, here we are trying to figure it out.
Hell yeah, man. Well, dude, this was an awesome little talk. I'm glad we threw this together. I would love to have you back on for some more.
Yeah, dude, this was awesome. Fucking super stoked.
I'm definitely going to be planning. Every once in a while I do roundtables, and so I want to do one with this topic. I'm just taking my sweet time trying to frame it, because there's so many good researchers that have their own angles, and I'm really trying to shape it in a way that we can really highlight all the different more contradictory ideas so we can suss them out together. You know what I mean? Because this whole topic, I feel, is if we can grasp this better and put it together with some other key elements, you know, even reaching out to things like electric universe theory and stuff like that.
Totally.
I mean, eventually it all has to connect. And I think electricity is becoming more and more of a main theme in kind of like finding the missing pieces to our puzzle here, in my opinion. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think these things all tie in. It all ties in, and this is awesome. And I think we need to take advantage of like this technology, and you know, like they can't stop us from doing this, you know.
Not yet.
And not yet. And so let's take advantage of it, you know. Get some people together who normally aren't in contact together, and like have a group sesh for sure. I think that those are great ideas, big time.
Hell yeah, man.
And
all right, dude.
I'll come back anytime, dude. This was sick.
Absolutely, man. That's great to hear. Awesome. All right. Well, so tell the audience where they can find you if they have any questions for you, man.
On Instagram, it's Golden Gate Starfort Command, and we have a YouTube channel, Golden Gate Starfort Command, with a handful of videos on there. Just our take. It's just our take. Me and my buddy Nick. It's our take on this whole thing. You know, as we're trying to figure it out. We've been inspired to make videos. It's been pretty fun.
Hell yeah, man. We all have our pieces of the puzzle to add to this.
Totally. And I'm stoked. And thanks for having me on and letting me give my spiel and say my word. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you. And I appreciate the work you're doing. And I definitely we'll keep talking as we do. You know, we'll keep bouncing crazy ideas off each other, and we'll keep doing it, man.
Dude, all right. It's my favorite thing to do.
Casey Watson, have a good night, man.
Hell yeah, you too, bro.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Deep Share Podcast. If you want to hear more, then hit that subscribe button. Follow me on all the social places. And remember, think for yourself, but don't always believe what you think. Till next time.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, that's hysteria. Enough, I get the point.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone.
What do we know? What do we know? If I know what we know, then I can tell you what we know, and if someone else knows, okay?